Okay, so thanks for joining soapUI Overview Web Services webinar. So we'll talk about what soapUI is first, and we'll talk about a bit of features, and then we are going to look into the features using hands-on app. So what is soapUI? It's one of the popular tool for web services testing and monitoring, including load testing. And it is open sourced. However, they have soapUI Pro, which is a commercial version. It's actually from a commercial company, and it runs in a standalone mode as well as ID plugins. Today, most of the lab works are in standalone mode. So let's talk about the features. So you can inspect and invoke a web service, again, as long as WSDL document is available from a web service. Anybody can actually inspect it and invoke that web service, so it's not surprising. The second feature is a mock web services. So we'll talk about these features so we'll talk about these things in a bit more detail in the following slides. So we'll talk about mock web services, functional testing, and load testing, and monitoring REST support and code generation. Okay, so yeah, we are basically talking about each of these features in a bit more detail. So inspecting and invoking a web service is basically you have an access to WSDL document, and then you can find out exactly what web services endpoints are available and how to invoke those web services. And you can have multiple requests per WSDL operation, and you can invoke and manage multiple endpoints. And it does support web services security feature. It does let you send attachment. It supports both MIME as well as MTOM, and WSI validations. You can validate whether your WSDL document is in fact WSI recommendation compatible or not. And we'll do some of these in the exercises. Mock web services is basically is going to mock your web services. Basically, is going to create a web services so that you can test it against it. So when do you want to use mock web services? Basically, when you do not have real web services implementation are not available, so that you want to just test it, some functionality, then you can create a mock web services. And even if you have real implementation of web services, you might not have an access to it. In that case, again, you can run it as a mock web service from the WSDL, and then you can actually send the request to it. And again, we'll actually play around with this mock web services feature of soapUI in hands-on app. And basically, creating mock web services that you can actually come up with, you can actually create a multiple responses. Okay, so depending on which request is sent to that mock web service will respond differently. So pretty nice. Another nice feature is a Groovy scripting. So we're going to actually take a look at this Groovy scripting just a little bit. We're not going to actually write new script, but we're going to take a look at the Groovy scripting as part of the sample exercise. Basically, you can do a lot of interesting things using Groovy, so a very powerful feature. And it does support SSL. And functional testing. So functional testing, as opposed to unit testing, you can think of unit testing as just send the request and whether it comes back with the right response. Functional testing is a series of those requests. So when you're sending series or sequence of those requests and responses, series of those requests, the responses, you want to actually check whether the final result is something that you expect. Okay? And you can even use the value from previous response to create the subsequent request. Again, we'll take a look at this feature later on. So you can actually create a series of requests and responses in a way you want and see whether it's behaving as expected. And later on, you can actually perform some assertion, basically seeing whether the return result is something that you expect. And it could use databases, but it is supported only in commercial version. You can do load testing with soapUI. So it is created from functional tests. So you can actually have a multiple, let's say, threads, each representing a client, and then you can do some load testing like a JMeter. So you can also do some assertions, see whether the performance result is something that you expect, and if it is not, it will actually let you know. And it does support various load strategies: simple, burst, variance, and thread-based. And it could display the result in diagram as well as statistics table. It does generate a code, but most of the IDs generate a code as well, so it's not that much of a big deal. So in a sense, this is actually playing the role of an IDE or command line tool like the wimport or wgen for creating both server-side and client-side code, including XML binding code. But these are the things that you can find in Eclipse IDE or NetBeans IDE as well. All right, so that is the end of the presentation. So let me actually move on to the hands-on lab. By the way, I just uploaded new version of the hands-on lab using latest version of soapUI, which is version 4.0.1. Okay, so basically installation is pretty straightforward. You go to soapUI website, and again the latest version is 4.0.1. and you are going to just download whatever platform version of your choice, and then you can just install it. So once you install it, it will install it just the an application in your platform. So in my platform, it is installed as Windows. So it is installed the program files, the x86, it's just the regular application installation. And when you install it, you want to actually check source. However, the sample application you're going to use, is not actually included in the in the latest version 4.0.1. So I actually included in our hands-on lab. But it does come with a bunch of sample applications. So if you want to see sample application, you want to check this source. By sample applications, I'm talking about sample project. And then you can just start and configure. So once you start it, you're gonna see the soapUI like this. That's what I have right now here. And then you can create a project. So I'm gonna just use the mostly lab documentation just to proceed with some continuity. So here you can configure. So you can just click this one. And you can set various things. Here you're going to set WSDL set. Well, actually it is set as a default. Okay, so just make sure always include optional schema elements when creating requests. Okay, so it is set as a default. Just check, see whether it is set. And yeah, for Mac OS you can do some font settings. All right, so we are going to actually move on to exercise 1. So exercise 1 is actually invocation of publicly available web service. I found this xignite.com supports a stock code service, real-time stock code service. You can actually go to this website and you can do some free trial. Yeah, I don't have the trial license anymore because it has been a long time ago. And basically you are going to get with the document, you actually provide some information about yourself, and you provide a verification key and all that stuff, and basically now you can actually access with the document. So once you click this one and get developer resources, the UI might have been changed a little bit because this screen has been captured about 2 years ago. But the idea is that you should actually get the WSDL document so this is the one. So you're going to actually get the WSDL document, and you're going to save the WSDL document in your file system, and then you're going to create a new soapUI project. Okay, so again, soapUI, only thing you need from soap-based web service is WSDL document. So you're going to create a new soapUI project, and you're going to name it. This is the name of your project, and then you're going to specify the location where you have your WSDL document. So you're going to browse it, and this xrealtime.wsdl document, and then you're going to create request, So this is what you're going to see. So these are a bunch of the web services operations that can be performed against that real-time stack code service. So here we are just trying to get the code. So you right click it. If you double click it, you're going to see this request one, the window, and basically you are going to just provide the values, username and your password and your trader name, whatever, and the exchange has to be INET, and then you provide stack code symbol like Apple, and then when you run the application, then you're going to actually click this one. This is actually submit the request to the web service, and you're going to receive stack code information. Okay, so this is real-time stack code information. All right, so that is for the case of real-life web service. But in terms of how soapUI is functioning, it really doesn't matter whether that web service is a real-life production quality service or your own service. Okay, now exercise 2 is a mock web service. Again, mock web service is useful when you want to actually test your client-side application. Okay. All right, so here we are going to create new soapUI project file and new soapUI project, and you're gonna just name, in this case I name it as a mock add number web service, and then you're gonna provide again WSDL document. So this WSDL document is provided as part of the hands-on lab. So you go to samples WSDL directory, and you're going to see add numbers WSDL document, and you select it and you open it. And you're going to, so you're going to see new soapUI project. Again, you're going to create a sample request as a default. Okay. Okay, so here we have created the sample, the mock add number web service. And now what we're going to do is we want to add some functionality, meaning some operations into your mock service. So what you do is here I'm just selecting one of these operations. He has 2 operations, but I'm adding just add number operation into a mock web service. So you right click it and click add to mock service. And it's going to ask you the name of the mock service you're creating. So the default, I'm just taking default name, which is a mock service 1 at this point. And then, basically once you created a mock service, then you are going to create a set of responses. So the set of responses are something that you are going to send back as a response once request is received to that mock web service. So I'm actually creating a response, the first response. This is the add number thing. So, I'm actually, setting 11. So request should actually, should have the correct combination to get this result. So you are creating a response, a single, in this case I'm actually creating a single response, but you can create a multiple. Okay, now we are going to start the mock web service. So we are going to actually right click it and then restart, and then you're going to see this running on port 8080, meaning this mock web service is running on port 8080. So if you actually see some kind of message like this, the net binding exception already in use in bind, that means some other process is using that port 8080. Maybe you are running Tomcat or Glassfish. In that case, you just want to close those servers and then restart it again. Okay, so that this guy can actually take port 8080. So that means the web services, this mock web service is running on port 8080 at the moment. Okay. Now you can okay, so now you're going to actually add mock web services endpoint address to the interface. What it means is that you have to actually specify the endpoint address of this mock web service. So you're going to actually right click it and add endpoint to interface, and basically this is the interface that you are adding. Okay, so this is the address the client will actually send the request to. Okay, and then you're going to actually see them as one of the the endpoint addresses. Okay, and then you're ready to send the request. So your mock service is up and running, and it is ready to send back the response when you send the request. So we are now the creating, well, actually the request one is already created as a default. So I'm going to edit that request. So you right click it and show request editor. And basically this is the request message. So request message. So you can see it has arg0 and arg1. It's basically the numbers I'm actually sending to the mock web service. So this is the mock web service endpoint. You have to choose because that's what you have set here. Okay, so you're actually setting the endpoint address for your mock web service. Okay, so you select this one, and then of course you have to provide the right number. So in this case, I'm actually setting 3 and 8 or 4 or 7 or whatever, and then you're going to click this one. So this is actually submitting request. Okay. And when you submit, then you're going to receive the response. So this response is from this mock web service. Okay, so mock web service is returning this response message, which you created in previous step. Okay, and then you can stop the mock web service. Okay, now I'm not sure this is the case for 4.0.1, but in 3.5 you have to actually exit soapUI. Otherwise, somehow the port 8080 is still taken by soapUI. Okay, so just in case you still have a binding errors later on, so you can just exit out. So let me just run that things. Okay, so let me see whether I have okay, so this is actually add number. So I'm gonna actually, this is pretty much the same thing. Exercise 3 is the same thing. So I probably actually do that. Okay. So exercise 3 is actually doing pretty much the same thing with the extra steps, but locally deployed Hello World web service. Okay. So you're gonna actually open Hello World web service. So I have Hello World web service that's up and running. So if I actually oh, you know what? I have to actually. I'm gonna just close this guy so that 8080 is So let's actually. Oh, I haven't actually created a mock web service anyway. Okay, so yeah, so I'm okay. Because I'm not running a mock web service. Okay. Yeah, just in case you're actually starting a web service, then you want to close it, and then you want to actually start the your Hello World web service. So I'm actually seeing. So I'm going to just test web service. Okay, so I can see with the document. Okay, so this is something that we have done in previous sessions. All right, now I want to actually go to documentation. So this is what I just have done. Okay, so I just test web services. Now I know it's up and running. Okay, now we are going to create a new soapUI project. So again, file and soapUI project, and you're going to provide the location of WSDL document. Okay, so here this is the WSDL document location. That is the location that I captured from here. Okay, so you just copy it, and then you actually provide to soapUI, and here you want to create a test suite for the imported WSDL, and click OK. And so we created a suite, and then again we are going to use a request editor. So here again, if you right click request one and show request editor, you are going to edit your request message. So here you're going to just change it. It used to be question mark. Now you're going to change it, life is good, and then you're going to submit, and then you're going to actually receive the response message. So let's actually just do that. So that is my hello world message. So this is the request message. So I have already changed this one. Hello life is, oh, that is actually response message. So I'm going to just clean this guy. So I'm going to just do it again. So here, so life is good. So I'm going to just change it to really, really good. So really good. And then if I submit the request, then I should actually receive, really good. hello, life is really good. Okay, so that is the response message. Okay, not much of a big deal. And then you can inspect WSDL documents. You can actually right-click it and show interface view. So that means, basically you are looking at WSDL document. So this is the WSDL document you are going to see. Okay, and you can see the various information of WSDL document in graphical format. So you can see WSDL content. And then you can perform the WSI compliance, whether your WSDL document is WSI compliant or not. Okay, so you can just click this tab and then you can submit the request. Then it will tell you whether it's compliant or not. So let's just try that. So hello web service, I'm going to show interface viewer. So let me actually close all these things. This is one of the things that I don't like in soapUI. It just doesn't manage the. Okay, so this is the. Okay, this is actually running. I'm gonna actually try this one later on. This is my web service. We're going to play around later on. Okay, so this is the. Let's start from scratch. So I am going to, again, this hello web service, show interface viewer, and now you see WSDL document, and you can see service endpoints, WSDL document in more or less graphical format, something that you probably have seen in NetBeans or Eclipse IDE, WS editor. Now this one is also actually imported XXD document. This is the XML schema, right? Now here, this is a WSI compliance. You can see whether this WSDL document is WSDL compliant or not, and you're going to just click this one, and it's going to run WSI analysis tool to check whether this is WSDL compliant or not, and you're going to actually see the result like this. Okay. So it will tell you. These are all the rules. Okay. So we haven't actually gotten. I have a slide in Web Services course on WSI basic profile, but I decided not to actually talk about it because this is something that is usually you don't have to care. Okay. All right, so that is the WSI compliance testing for your WSDL document. Okay, exercise 4 and 5 is actually more interesting. So as I said before, functional testing is, this is generic concept of functional testing. So functional testing includes multiple series of requests and responses. Okay, so instead of just one single unit testing of request and response, you can do functional testing, and that's sometimes quite useful. So here we are going to create web service test from SOAP request. It's the same hello web service. Okay, so here I'm adding this request to test case. So you right click it and then so you're gonna actually so from the request one, you're gonna actually click this one, add this request to test case, and basically the name. The new test case. So here I name it as say hello my own. So right now you have two test steps, say hello and say hello my own. Okay. And you can actually see whether the assertion is there or not. Okay. So you can actually add another assertion. So when you click the assertion, you can actually select a bunch of things. Okay. So let's actually try it. So I have already created. So here, if you wanna, so this is assertion case. If you click this guy, you can actually see where you can actually do various assertions on various things, whether HTTP status code is correct, JMS timeout if you're using JMS, WS security status, and response service, service layer agreement, service. What is the L stand for? Service. It's actually some kind of service agreement, and whether SOAP response is correct and things like that. And here we are basically choosing XML schema compliance. Okay, so we are basically checking whether response is actually compliant with the XML schema that was included in as part of the WSDL document. Yeah, service level agreement. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so that is this is basically what you do, and you can actually see if you double click it, you're going to actually see. For now, we haven't tested it, so it says unknown. You haven't tested it yet. So once you actually start the testing, you are going to actually do these assertions. Okay, so now you're going to actually start the you're going to submit the request. Okay, and then you are going to see the in this case success. The SOAP response is correct, and also schema compliance is correct. So this is basically testing it. Okay, so that is functional testing. So this exercise might not be that much about. So basically, the functional testing is supposed to be actually a series of requests. So this one doesn't really actually tell you the series of those things. So I have to actually kind of change this one a little bit to show the series of things actually being tested. Okay, so exercise 5. Yeah, this is actually interesting. Probably the most interesting exercise here. So in this case, let me actually move on and let me explain. So you want to actually import again the existing SOAP project. Okay. By the way, the sample project that you used to use for this hands-on lab is not actually somehow included in latest version of soapUI. So I actually included that sample project as under this directory, WS soapUI overview. So the latest version of soapUI has a different set of sample applications. But I found this exercise, this sample is actually more interesting than the ones that they actually shipping right now. So, we're going to just use this one. So again, you actually go to soapUI overview, that lab directory, and then you will see sample soapUI project directory, and then you're going to select sample soapUI project. Okay. And then this is what you're going to see. You're going to see sample project. Okay. So, yeah, that's actually something that I have already here. Yeah, so this is actually something that you're going to see. Okay. Oh, not this one. Sorry, this is the one from the actual latest version. Yeah, these are the set of sample applications that are provided by the latest version of soapUI 4.0.1. The one I want to use is actually this one, sample service soap binding. Okay, so that's the one that I actually provided as part of the hands-on lab. So let me actually move on with the lab documentation. So it comes with, it's actually relatively well structured and a reasonably sophisticated web application. So it already has a mock web service. So if you're expanding it, you're going to see this mock web service is actually made of buy, login, logout, and search, meaning this mock web service can handle buy, login, and logout and search type of operations. Now, on the login, you have in fact different responses. Again, each mock web service, you can actually create a different response. So if you take a look at OK response, it will actually, if login operation has been successful, it will return session ID. So this is actually interesting. So in functional testing, yeah, so this is in a way actually an example of functional testing as well. In which you are going to actually have a multiple request and response, and the whatever value that comes from the previous the request and response exchange in fact has to be used for subsequent request and response. And one of those things is in fact the session ID, because once you're logging in, the session ID represent that particular user, right? So in this case, it returned the session ID. Okay, so this is the response message. Okay. And if you want to see the third response, is this is the case already logged in and false. So if you send a request that contains a login username and password, and if the user has been already logged in, this is a message that mock web service will actually return. Okay. So again, these are the examples of various responses that you can actually have for the mock web service. Okay. For that particular login operation. Okay, so we're going to actually start this mock web service. So you are going to right click it and you're going to start it. Okay, so you're going to see this mock web service. Okay, so you can see these are the operations that could be performed against that mock web service. So let's actually try that. So again, I'm going to select. So this is the one that that we have seen in the lab documentation. It returns a session ID. Okay. So I'm going to run this mock web service, right click it and restart. So you can see it is now starting. Okay. All right. Now let's explore these operations. Okay. So you can actually right click it and show mock operations editor. Now this is what you see. Okay. So these are in fact the Groovy code. Okay. That you can actually write to actually do some the validation. Okay, so you can actually do some validation using Groovy. Okay, and so I'm not going to actually go through detail of this Groovy code. Okay, but just to let you know that Groovy code can be actually used to do the interesting the logic processing. Okay, and now we are going to send the request, login request. Okay, so I'm going to just right click and show request editor so we can actually change the value. So here you have to select the right URL, of course, right? So you select right URL, that is the mock web service, right? And then as a default login name is login and login123. So this is the default, okay, which is okay. And when you send it, it will return session ID. Okay, so let's actually try that. So I am going to it is running. So yeah, so this is the now I'm actually seeing request message. Okay, so I'm actually sending this one. Yeah, so this time if I actually send it again, because I have tested before, meaning it actually returns a session ID. Okay, so if I click this one, it actually, yeah, okay, so I think now it actually returns a different session ID. Okay, now if I run it again, then it returns already logged in, so it's actually behaving as expected. Okay, so if, again, if I click again, it will just keep coming back with already logged in, because the person is already logged in. So basically this is example of the functional testing in which I'm actually sending multiple requests, and the first request is logging in and it returns a session ID, and the second request is behaving based on the result of the first request. Okay, all right. So again, we have received the session ID, and now what you're gonna do is a log out. Okay, so now when I try to do log out, I mean, this value is different from what has been returned from previous request, right? And if I actually try to log out with a different value, it will actually say invalid session ID. Okay, so let's try that. So now I'm gonna try log out again. I'm gonna just edit this one. This is not the same value that was returned, right? It's the random value that was actually entered. Okay, or we can just change it, this value, on our own case. Now if I send it, now it comes back with a message, invalid session ID, because this session ID is not existent because nobody logged in with that. Okay, so that is not the result of any previous login. So this is expected. Okay, so what you can do now is, you are going to actually go to the first response. Okay, so you're going to actually capture the session ID from the first response, and then you're going to actually provide your logout. Okay, in that case, when you run it, it will succeed. Okay, so let's actually try that. Let's see, this is okay. I'm going to just close this guy. I couldn't find it. We're going to actually stop it, okay, and try again. And then we are going to restart, okay, and now we're going to start request. Oh, not hello world. We want to actually try the smart web service. This one. Okay, so we are going to send this default. Now you're going to actually capture the session ID that is returned. Okay, so we are going to, okay, all right, now we are going to save this session ID. Okay, I'm going to just copy it. Now when I try to log out, okay, I'm going to use this value instead of this one. So I'm going to save here. Now if I send the request, it should actually have a successful logout. Okay, so okay, now the the logout has been successful. Okay, all right. Okay, so it actually shows that again, the soapUI is capable of for you to be, well, for now we're actually manually setting it, so this is not really convenient, right? So when you do automatic testing, obviously you want to have all these things done automatically, meaning series of the the request and response changes should be done automatically instead of manually copying these things, of course. Okay, so that's actually the next one. Okay, so this is basically another good example of functional testing. So here you can see it is actually doing a bunch of things in this test suite. Okay, so if you actually see this test suite, so so let me actually show you what I mean by that. Yeah, so this test suite, each of this is like a test scenario. Okay, so here you are going to log in and log out. Okay, and this is the case that you are going to log in and log out and then log in again. Okay, so see whether that works. So we're going to actually try with this. Okay, so this is actually made of the 5 steps. So now the real request and response is these two. Okay, however, we have extra things that needs to be done. So here, this is basically setting the username and password properties. And then you're going to transfer the username and password to your request. And then you're going to actually perform the request. And then here you're going to copy the return session ID to the next one. Okay, so basically these 3 steps are kind of preparations for doing the real testing. And basically, we are using properties to capture username and password and also session ID, so that property will be actually used for actual testing. Okay, so I'm going to actually use the lab documentation to explain it. So again, it's made of these 5 steps. Okay, so if you take a look at the first one, if you take a look at the contents of that the step, this is what you see. Okay, so basically, it's actually constructing login ID and password like this. I mean, it's basically setting username and password properties. Okay, now if you take a look at the second step, what it does is it's going to copy from these properties to test requests properties. So test request is something that you are going to execute here. This is the real testing to the server. So it's actually getting username and password from these properties. Okay, and and then the real request sending to the server, you can actually see it, and you can actually see it is actually getting. I mean, you can see this is actually getting the property value. Okay, so let's actually just to see that. So this is the one. Yeah, so this is basically yeah, in this case it's actually generating a random number and the substring. Okay, oh, I see. So this is yeah, so this is login. Yeah, I thought actually I was actually getting the actual value from this step, but you can certainly have this kind of logic to create the value. Okay, and actually this is probably more interesting. So this is a case that we are getting, let me just maximize it. This is a case that we are getting session ID. Okay, so this is the session ID. You can see this is in fact the XPath notation. right? I mean, if you still remember XPath, the syntax, this is XPath notation from the response message, and then we are actually using it for this logout. We are basically using it for the logout session ID. Again, this is XPath notation. So we are getting the value from the response from the this request, and then we are setting this value of this request. Okay, all right. So that's probably actually giving you a sense of how XPath is used to retrieve the value and setting the value. Okay, and so that is pretty much property. Yeah, so this is what we have just seen, and the last one is pretty much what you expect. Okay, and then you're going to actually test it, and then you should work. Okay, so we are going to let's do the testing. So I'm gonna basically, when I click this test, it's going to run all 5 this. So now it's actually finished. Okay, and is successful. And if you change any of this, it will actually kind of fail. Okay. So this is an example of the functional testing. All right, so that is the end of what I have. So any questions? So question is it possible to download the zip file containing labs to work with and follow along the next weekly seminar? No, I mean, attending this webinar is free. However, the contents, including hands-on lab and even recordings, are only for paying members. Okay, so let me actually